going to lead the talk today? What do you think? Yeah, can I have my seat? Come on, let me get my seat. Hi, everyone. Good boy. Hey, baby. Hi, everyone. How are you? My name is Kayse Gehret, and I'm the founder at Soulstice Mind and Body Studio. We're a massage therapy, meditation, and yoga studio in Northern California. And we have put together, that's right, we put together a series of videos for you guys to help welcome you into the massage therapy and healing arts field. If you're just entering, to give you a little advice and inspiration that we have learned. I have been in the field for a couple decades now. We have had Soulstice since 2012, so we're going into our 8th year, and I love this field. I am just as passionate today about massage therapy and the healing arts as I have ever been. So welcome everyone today who's tuning in. So each of our videos are, intended to be bite-sized pieces on different topics. So some will be more, physical advice based. Some are more just logistical and practical in nature. And then some of our videos are going to be, just things that we've learned along the way that, are impossible to learn in school in an academic setting. It's really just real life stuff that you will encounter. So that is the theme of today's video. So when you are working with the public and human beings, the beauty of this is that it's never unchanging. There's always something new to learn, to discover, to be challenged by, to grow from. Human beings are complex. We can be complicated. We can be contrary. There's so much going on, and there's often things going on, we're multi-layered. So we can only ever know, as much as we know. So today's video, I'd like to call it, it's working with people under more challenging circumstances. So you might call them your problem clients, your special cases. At the studio, we call them jokingly our opportunities. It's not a problem, it's an opportunity. We are all each other's teachers. So whether it's people we're working with, or people who we're working for, or people that we're managing, it's our clients and our students. So we're all each other's teachers. So I think that is the philosophy we come from, is that, human interaction is ever changing, and it's one of our biggest growth spots, that we will have people show up in our lives at a certain time for a certain reason, and it's always intentional, and we're always supposed to learn from it. So even in the most challenging of circumstances, doing the best you can in each moment is really having a positive attitude and saying, what can I learn from this? And there's always, always a little something, even if it's just your own reaction to something, can be great growth. So with that spirit, we approach things from a place of, it's not a problem, it's an opportunity. And challenging people can be our greatest teachers. So with that, certain things that will come up with clients, it's just a matter of time. It also really depends on, what type of setting you're in and community. And by that I mean this: we've been privileged to be into very, very different communities as we've grown Soulstice. And I personally have worked with quite a diverse array of people in my practice, extending over 20 years. So, for example, when I was in private practice, my private practice grew to work with a lot of, very, very accomplished CEOs from around the world. I worked with a lot of MBA teams. I worked with a lot of celebrities, very successful musicians and artists. So that, presented its own learning curve, working with that group of people. There were certain things that were important to them that weren't important to other people. Similarly, where we practice here in the Bay Area, there are parts of the Bay Area that are, all of it's expensive. It's the San Francisco Bay Area. It's one of the most expensive places in the country. But those places that are closer to the city in San Francisco are very, very affluent. We get a lot of visitors and tourists from around the world that are a more economically privileged group of people, which again are very different from being in a more community setting where there is more diversity, both diversity in terms of money, resources, as well as ethnic diversity. So it's never dull, there's always something new to learn and adjust to. And so that's just part of your growth as a practitioner, as well as a human being. So it's all beautiful, and have an open mind. So just working with some of the things, I wanted to give you some really specific things, because again, there's a saying that, and I'm improvising here, there is a saying, something along the lines of, a wise man, learns from his own experience, but a truly wise man learns from the experiences of others. So some things you just got to make your own mistakes in life. They're experiential. But if you can, whenever you can, learn, from your mentors, from your advisors, just observation in life, it will really help you, even when it happens to you for the first time. You will move through it with a different understanding and a different amount of grace, if you kind of had in your back pocket that this might happen. So, punctuality. So this is an issue, in real life, and it's particularly an issue when we're in a business that is, we are paid for our time, right? So we book an hour, we book 15 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it is. As therapists and healers, we typically earn our money hourly. So punctuality and timeliness, we're trading and investing our time and our energy in exchange for resources in the form of money, right? So it's really important you start out with having a good sense of boundaries when it comes to timing. So just that, and that can present in several ways. So people run late, it's a very common human thing. Some people just run late, no matter where they're going or what they're doing. Even when they're paying for it and they're excited about it, they'll still run late. And it's just, it's part of their wiring, and sometimes it's tied to something else psychologically. We can never know. But for people who are constantly running late, once you know this about a person, you can continue to be really super frustrated by it, and wish it were different. Or you can learn to work with that chronic lateness, which is much less frustrating. So, for example, if you're in private practice and one of your favorite people, you love everything about them and love working with them, but they are chronically late, an easy solution is just to build in an extra 15 minutes or half an hour after their session, knowing that they're going to run late, and that way you're not inconveniencing yourself, you're not inconveniencing a client by scheduling them right afterward. You kind of make an allowance and know there's so many other things that you love about working with this person. You stretch and you make exception, and you tweak your scheduling and your process to accommodate for their own unique needs. That's one easy way to do it. Another way is just to set really good boundaries. So if you feel like it's something, sometimes you have a sense that people's lateness just is, it's an underlying inconsideration. If they're late and it has more to do with, them just not being aware of someone other than themselves, accommodating them by changing your schedule might not be the best solution, right? So in those cases, you can feel free to set boundaries. One easy way to do it is to just schedule someone as you would, after them. And if they're late, they only have time to receive the time that you have for them. So after they get a short session, once, twice, 3 times, hopefully they will learn to be on time. And in this case, you might get, an unhappy person, a little bit of whininess, but if you hold to your intention, very frequently people will, learn to honor your time, to honor their time. It's really them caring for the time that you're setting aside for them to take care of them. So that's another way you can. Also, I had a client who was so late that it went into the nether sphere of absurdity. So I worked with a lot of musicians and athletes and clients, and so sometimes their flight was delayed and sometimes their game went into overtime, and they couldn't control sometimes if they were late for a session. And in those cases, I would just roll with it. It was no big deal. I had another client who was just a diva. He was just the diva of divas, and he could be, because he was a big deal. And so he just wasn't minutes late, he would be hours late sometimes. So the way I remedied that situation was I would just charge him for that time, and at first he was like, what? But, I said, as long as you're fine with paying for my time, I'm fine with bringing a book. And so instead of getting frustrated, or resentful of him, I would just come to those sessions knowing that instead of leaving an hour and a half, I should leave 3 hours of my time, not book anybody else right after that, and just bring a project to do. I would write, I would read, I would do something constructive with my time and just have that ready. And that way, if he decided to be late just because he felt like it, which was the case, I would charge for that time in addition to the time that I was actually working with him. And so as long as he got himself okay with doing that, and I was okay with doing that, I was able to continue working with them, which, aside from, again, the lateness, was a really fantastic experience. So just be open, flexible, but be clear. And the clearer you are in yourself and communicate well, everything is possible. Showing up late is more common, but showing up early can be just as annoying as being late, right? So whether you're applying for a job or, showing up for a client, be early enough to be responsible and be grounded and be prepared, but don't be so early that you are encroaching on this person's time and schedule. So very frequently people will have a lot of stuff scheduled, especially really, really busy people. When I was in private practice, my clients, they might have 16, 25 meetings in a day. And literally my 90 minutes with them, it was literally, other than eating, that was their free time for the day. So I was very, very conscious of, right before our session started, they might be just ending a call, and they might need to get on a call immediately after our session ends. So the more you can be self-aware and conscious of the other person's, where they're at, what is their schedule, do they have time to linger, or do they have time to hang out, or do they need you to kind of be very, very protective of the time. Just be aware of that, because being early can be just as interruptive to someone's schedule as being late. So also, no shows. Okay, so this is a big one. And everybody has a different opinion as to how to handle no-shows. So I will share with you my experience with clients who no-show or who cancel last minute. And I'll give you two different scenarios. So the scenario when you're in private practice, and then I'll give you a scenario when you're running a larger operation with staff and with a team. So in private practice, when someone no-shows, it's very different when they blow you off altogether versus they let you know when something came up last minute. So no-shows, when someone no-shows either at a larger organization or in your private practice, always lead with compassion. We always assume that people had no idea, like they had no intention of not valuing your time. We assume they got sick, they spaced it out, they have something major going on in their life, or something big happened. So when we call them, when they don't show up, we always lead with, are you okay? That is our first concern, is to make sure the client is okay. We're not being critical, we're not being judgy, we're not angry at them, like we don't know what's going on. So even if it's a client you don't know, like give them the benefit of the doubt and just express care and concern first off. So then if you find out that someone just blew it, I and our team likes to, especially if someone is willing to be open and honest and is genuinely apologetic and was just like, I fucking blew it. I don't know how I forget about a massage, but it happens. We're much more understanding for someone who takes responsibility and is accountable, and we all make mistakes, and clients are thrilled when we respond to that and say, it's totally cool, we all make mistakes. Most of the therapists, in the cases of we leave it up to them, are they okay with just giving them a pass this time? Especially if it's somebody they know who has no history of doing this, I encourage you to give them a pass, because your generosity of spirit will come back to you a million times over. If you have a client that you've given the benefit of the doubt, this has happened more than once, what you can do is just make a note, and when you tell that person, hey, we understand things happen, this is the second time that this happened, so in the future we need to ask you to prepay for your next session is something you can do. You can also say, we need to ask you to pay for your missed session before you can receive future sessions. That's also fair to do. And again, not everybody's going to be super stoked that this is your policy, but be strong, be clear, be calm, and be consistent. Don't do one thing for one person and then change it and be waffly and weird and feel pressured, because it's usually the people who are the most understanding and the most compassionate and the most generous with your practice are not going to be the people who ask for a pass, but that means you should give it to them first, So those people that are easygoing with you, who are like, if you get sick last minute or you have an emergency, something happens with your kid, your pet, your spouse, anything, those are the clients that are going to be like, oh my gosh, I have empathy for you, and of course you could cancel and reschedule our session. So it goes both ways. What you give, you will have mirrored back to you, and vice versa. So as long as you're clear and vulnerable and open, that encourages your clients to be that with you as well. If people no-show and late cancel, and this happens more in like the tourist market and resorts and things. So when someone doesn't have a relationship with you, they don't even know you at all, and they're traveling somewhere. So in the Bay Area, there's so much to do in the city and in wine country. Very frequently, people will like book multiple things. Like they have their massage booked at the spa, and they have a theater booking, and they have a restaurant reservation. And many people, it's strange, but many people have no conscience at all about just doing what they want to do in that moment without the consideration of, you know, that restaurant is losing business because I had a table saved. The spa is losing business, and the therapist is losing money because I had a reservation saved. So in those cases, it's not cool, right? It's just not super considerate. So most spas and resorts do have a policy of charging no-shows and late cancellations 24 hours or less before the appointment. So this is tricky though. So the thing is, a lot of spas have this policy and at no issue. You know, if someone no-shows, they just charge, boom, therapist gets paid, boom, everybody's happy. And that's just the policy. And they have their 24-hour cancellation policy, you know, everywhere it should be. They state it on the phone at the time of booking, it's on the menu, it's on the website. They do their best to notify the client when booking that this is the policy. Even still, some people are aware and proceed with no-shows by charging the session back against their credit cards. So when we first opened, I didn't even know that existed, right? A lot of people don't, and it doesn't occur to you to buy something and then, you know, 30 days later when you get your credit card, just decide not to pay for it. That was new news to me. But what is common in, especially in tourist market and affluent markets, people who use a lot of credit cards, do a lot of travel, do a lot of entertainment, apparently it is true that even if someone no-shows for an appointment, even if you have a 24-hour cancellation policy and you proceed and you charge them for that session against their wishes or knowledge, they can 30 days later reverse the charges, or as it's called, a chargeback on their credit card, where they not only refuse to pay for the session, you, the business, the practitioner, also get charged an additional penalty frequently by your bank. So chargebacks are a drag. They really are. So not only do you get the funds that you were paid, you know, say you're charging $100 for a session, the bank, you know, when you receive a chargeback, they will crawl back into your account, take the $100, and then they will additionally charge you anywhere from $15 to $35 per incident when they do that. So now you're out up to $135 for a session that you held for them. And especially with tourists who do this, it tends to be a weekend appointment. It tends to be your busiest day of the week. So it's a bummer for your business. It's a bummer for the therapist doing the session when people engage in this behavior. But again, it's good to know ahead of time that this can happen, so you can adjust your policies as well as yourself to expect that might happen. So in our case, when we noticed at our location that was closer to the city, this happened more often. So we noticed a distinct difference in this behavior with more affluent markets. So So the more money and privilege clientele you're working with, you will see a higher rate of chargebacks and not honoring of your policies. Just because they tend to be more aware legally of what they can and can't get away with. It's humans, right? So what we decided to do is, in a case of a no-show, we opted, it wasn't worth the risk of charging a credit card just because it was our policy, knowing we could risk actually losing even more money than we were to begin with. So what we did was we only charge for a session on a no-show when the client gives us the green light to do so. So occasionally someone will late cancel, forget, no-show, just decide they wanted to do something else more than come to you. In that case, sometimes they'll be cool and they will say, we know you're missing work, we know it's a busy Sunday, we know the therapist is missing work, so go ahead and charge us this for the session and put 20% tip on it. That's like the cool client. That's how they handle that. Otherwise, if you get a client on the line, you check to make sure they're okay, and they just kind of come across as annoyed with you, and when you ask them, to comply with your policy and do you have permission to charge them for the session, if they say no, or they get annoyed or they get angry, don't charge them, because at the end of the day, even if you have their credit card, they're not going to honor that charge. So we decided to err on the side of caution. When someone green lights us to charge them, we do, and we're grateful. But if they don't give us a distinct green light or we don't get a hold of them, it is our policy not to charge in those cases. We only charge no-shows when the guidance is very clear. Remedying that. So the only remedy we have to people who aren't super cool and aren't honoring of your policy, when we decide not to charge them, we carefully note their account that they owe us for that session before they may receive services again. So if you're in a tourist market, the likelihood that they're going to visit again is somewhat minimal. But if you're a community-run operation, it's likely those people will come back in again or try to book another appointment. So what we do if we have someone who doesn't honor our policy, doesn't honor our time, book sessions and does not come in, has a pattern of that, we will put a negative account balance on their account, and with just a note on their account, so the whole team will know that this person is welcome to book services in the future, but only after they bring their account current. So we expect them to pay for previous sessions. The sessions, and if they happen to charge back in the future, we make them pay the penalty that the business incurred for the chargeback too, before we'll see them again. So again, it's not being, we're not being vengeful in any way, we're not being mean, it's just honoring our time, it's protecting our therapists. We're very clear and even when we describe such to the clients, and we just say, if you bought something, or reserve something, you can pay for it before you ask for more of our time. So that is the way we handle that. Another peculiar human thing that people do is, around communication. Communication is such, the more you can work and practice with your own communication, it's one of the most valuable things you can learn in your lifetime. It will transform every relationship you have. The more you become clear in who you are, and the more you can communicate clearly with authenticity, with clarity, without emotion, without past stuff, just being present, focused in the moment, and being really clear and open with people. It's so good for you, but it's how we teach people how to communicate. So many of us grew up where we were never exposed to what healthy, open communication looks like or feels like. A lot of us were taught to hide from confrontation. We were taught that like conflict is bad and should be avoided at all costs, and and then it creates this whole host of other issues when we aren't able to communicate clearly. So there's a whole, I say, arena of opportunities that we experience in our field that are strictly to do with human communications or limitations of human communication. So one common thing is there are always multiple sides and perceptions. So I really learned this the hard way. I screwed this up a lot in my first couple years of transitioning from having just my own practice to working with a team of people. So I so wanted to do a good job and everything right, and especially with customers. So a customer would have an issue, and it's all good, baby. A customer would have an issue and call, to complain, or email to complain. And I immediately just went to, I want to fix this, right? And I took them at their word, and I wanted to fix it right away. And I would call the therapist or the studio coordinator that it happened with. And then frequently I would talk to them, and it would be a completely different story. And I had to go through that a number of times before I realized when it comes to humans, there are always multiple sides and multiple perceptions. So before you make any kind of decisions at all, whether it's just you and your client, or it's you and multiple people, if you're leading an organization, you don't want to react right away. You don't want to make decisions right away. Just let the person feel heard. That's all you have to do at the outset is say, in your manner, in your voice, with your words, say, I hear you, we're on it. What I would love to do is talk with the other people in question, or if it's just yourself, if it's all right with you, I would love to just sit with this for a little while to better understand and think about what was happening for me in that moment. So it just diffuses the situation. It lets the person feel heard, but also gives you time to be deliberate, to have discernment, and to be, take the emotion out of, how do we remedy this situation? How do we make everybody feel better in this circumstance? Where is the middle ground? What can we learn from this? So being non-reactive and knowing that there's always, things going on that we don't know about, and there's multiple sides. So giving yourself that time. Another, opportunity that people provide with you is, some people are very responsive with their communication, and others are not so much. And some people are very consistent with their communication, and other people are not so much. So it's the latter that can be kind of tricky to navigate. So one thing that can be, shall we say, a learning opportunity is you will be contacting, requesting information. Sometimes it's something for their benefit. It's not even for you, but for some reason you need communication from someone. It might be a client, it might be a colleague, it might be a staff member, and they're not responsive. And it's days and hours and days, weeks, and you're waiting. Sometimes what will happen is then when that person finally gets back to you, they will want and need and demand an immediate response. So just knowing that that's a peculiarly human thing, it's super common. It's it's kind of annoying, but it's typically, we have compassion for that because everybody's on the spectrum of self-awareness, right? So, a self-aware person would say to themselves, I just took 3 weeks to respond to this email. The fact that I'm giving this person, a half an hour to respond or else is kind of unrealistic, but that's humans, it's just humans being humany. So that is very common of people to be a little bit checked out between, how they're behaving with their own expectation. So again, it's great if you kind of know that that's possible for people, and that way you're not being upset by it. It's just kind of amusing when viewed through the lens of like, it's just humans being human, and amusing as humans can be. Also, what's funny I've noticed with clients too is clients who haven't seen you for a while, or massage is very frequently like the most fun thing someone does in their day. It's really fun and it's really great, and it is. And so some people, depending on what's going on in their lives, it's like, you are the best thing that's gonna happen all week. Like, they just need to get through the week and then they can have their massage. So just know that while it's your job and your practice and you're kind of going and in it all the time, for some people, you can be unaware that how important you are in their life. You personally can be important to someone, but just more so the experience that you create for them is very exciting. It makes them happy, it brings them joy, and sometimes it's just, you are a life raft for them in really difficult times. Sometimes you are the only thing holding them together. And I'm not exaggerating. I say that with, after 20 plus years in this field, I see that a lot. When people are going through a lot, it's frequently their massage therapists and their long-term consistent relationship with them. It's like, when everything is changing and kind of your constructed world is caving in on you, it's those handful of like consistent things that are saviors, in a way, are sanctuaries for you. So just know sometimes, people will be very excited. And so this can manifest in different ways, right? So the day that you're going to work with someone, as that approaches like the day of, they might contact you a bunch of times, like when you're going to see them later on that day. That's very frequent. And you're trying to work and do your thing, and you're going to see this person for their appointment at 4 o'clock, but it's like, why are they continuously texting me? Why are they emailing the staff so many times? Just know, in their quirky human way, they're just excited. They're really looking forward to it, and it's just their anticipatory communication. That's it. So have patience, have understanding that that's what's going on. And so if someone is like driving you insane and you're going to see them later, that's all there is to it. They're just really excited to see you. Calling last minute. So this one is super common, especially in very affluent, busy lifestyle people. So a lot of times those people don't know their schedule. It's very unpredictable, and they'll call last minute. So again, it's kind of like the unintentional, harmless, chronic late people. The more you can not take it personally and roll with that, it will serve you enormously. I get asked a lot by students how I built my practice, because I was very, I worked with dream clients. I love basketball, and so to work with a bunch of NBA teams, to work with these incredible musicians and creatives, people often ask like, well, how did you do that? And my answer is I worked really hard. I love what I do. But a large part of how I was able to build that practice is I was willing to do a lot of things that most therapists were not willing to do in terms of being flexible and fluid and rolling with the nature of that work. So, for example, if someone was, on a flight that was delayed 3 hours, and the session didn't even start until 9:30 at night, a lot of people weren't down with that. But I had that freedom, I set that intention, and I gave myself that flexibility to, I would work late at night if need be. If someone was shooting a movie all day and the only time they had to do a session was at 6:30 a.m. in the morning, I was open to doing that. Sometimes people don't know when they're going to have this glorious 60-minute window in their day, and they would call with an hour and a half notice and say, can you be downtown in an hour? Again, that's not going to be for everybody, but that was a large part of what allowed me to be successful, and that's what allowed me to work with the type of clients that I did. Is I was ultimately flexible. I was very clear, and I didn't ever take it personally. They weren't calling last minute because they were being entitled and just they legit, that was their life. That was kind of the craziness of their life they couldn't plan. So I think when people call last minute, it's important not to take it personally. It's never about you. Rarely is it about them being inconsiderate or entitled in any way. If you can accommodate them, it delights people, So when people call last minute, sometimes they call and they're like, I'm so sorry, I know this is really unrealistic, but if we can fit them in, we're happy to, because it delights them, it exceeds their expectation, and all of those are really good things. So we never ever want to answer the phone and make people feel badly in any way because this is the only time they had to call. Calling and texting and emailing. So as much as possible from the outset with your practice and your business, if you have a larger organization, is making it really clear and obvious for clients how to contact you and when to contact you. So we love to talk to people on the phone whenever possible. We're a little unique in our philosophy and our approach in that we don't have a menu of services. We genuinely need to talk to everybody who calls so that we can match them with the best practitioner for their needs, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. We're not looking to violate their privacy in any way, but our studio coordinators are very emotionally intuitive people and are trained to, elicit what type of experience is someone looking for on any given day. Is it a physical pain? Is it they're super stressed out? Are they grieving the loss of a pet? So we need to talk to people to get that. We're never going to get the context we need from an email to be able to book through someone. We're never going to be able to book someone through online booking. People would love that convenience, but it's just we can't do our best work if we allow online booking. So it's just not even something we have available to people. So I think first sitting with determining the nature of your practice, who your clients are, what kind of communication best serves all of those factors. So for example, in our Soulstice world, we need to talk to people. Our connection with our clients is everything. So you can't get that through a text message or an email. So sometimes things take a little bit longer, but it's really important to us to have that connection and that closeness and to have that context that phone calls allow. So we make our phone number very readily available. If someone emails to book an appointment, we email them back and say, please give us a call or provide us with your phone number and we'll call you. In my private practice life, I, in many ways, knew either knew the client or it was a referral to someone who knew my client, like was a teammate or was in their band or something. And in that case, I did not insist on people calling because their lives were crazy. Like sometimes they were on multiple flights or at halftime, and all they had was text messaging. So in those cases, I learned to accommodate and match my practice with the type of communication that practice warranted. So yeah, that is, so those are some of my things that have come up frequently in 20 years for me and then for us. And again, like these things will change over time if it's just you as an individual or it's you across your organization. But fundamentally, I guess what I'll leave you with as we conclude, when it comes to client issues, it's, almost all of the time, it's rooted in communication. So the more practice you can do with getting used to knowing yourself really well, being clear in who you are, developing the bravery that you need to be authentic and to be able to speak to who you are, without feeling fear or feeling ashamed or having the fear of repercussions. Just owning your feelings, being clear, and delivering them with a friendliness and a kindness and a clarity will take you a long way. Because again, it's one of the most beautiful things that you can develop as a human being for your own growth. And the more we as healers can embody that and really live in the world and communicate in the world in a way that our clients can learn from, embody, be inspired by, reflect and mirror, that is a beautiful thing for our evolving world. So with that, I want to thank you for being with us today. I hope some of those things were helpful for you. Again, tune into some of our other videos. Each one will be a special, flavor, a different piece of the pie, and all with the intention of helping you along your way, your path, and your journey. As always, if you have questions for us, we're easy to find online. You can drop us a line at soulsticemindbodyspa.com. And until we see you again, we wish you a beautiful day.